You're listening to Life Check Yourself with life coach, transformational leader, and dating and relationship badass, Marni Battista. Every week, you'll get the raw truth from top experts and real people on the important life and love issues you want to know about. So if you're ready to life check yourself in your relationships, your career, and the areas of your life that matter most to you, and you're not afraid to be called out on your stuff, then you're ready for what's next.
Life Check Yourself with Heather Wiese. Awkward. Who do you invite when you can't stand his family? Ladies, oh my Lanta, as I love to say. I didn't know women like Heather existed today. And when you listen to this episode, you are going to feel so enlightened about information you always wondered but didn't even know that you could ask. And you might be wondering, what the hell is she talking about? We're going to be talking about etiquette. Yeah, literally. Heather, oh my gosh, is it Heather Wiese or Heather Weiss?
Yes, Wiese.
Heather Wiese is an etiquette writer and founder of Belle and Vito, which just sounds amazing, which is a woman-owned responsible luxury brand that sells stationery and leather goods made with heart and high standards. The company is on a mission to inspire its customers to live beautifully and purchase intentionally while educating them on etiquette. Amazing. She started the company in 2005, and she'll probably tell us a little bit of the story, but she came upon some old presses, and I'm assuming that's like leather, right? Leather presses?
No, they are they're proofing presses from the late 1800s when they printed newspapers. So I started before the leather line. I started and still have the manufacturing of the high-end stationery printing, engraving, letterpress, these textured pieces of paper that we all sort of gravitate toward, go, ooh, that's so pretty.
I love that. I mean, see ya, paperless Post. Let's go back to stationery.
Right. It's what we're emulating graphically when we do that. Exactly.
Oh my God. So I think it's really interesting. Like you were told that women aren't typically involved in this sort of line of work, and you figured it out. You're going to tell us about that story, and then we're going to talk about how the hell did that turn into expertise in etiquette. And I also just want to tell everyone that your company also supports the Children's Cancer Fund, which is amazing. And you're involved in another organization called New Friends, New Life, which focuses on rehabbing, educating, and caring for former sex workers. And I mean, you're just an amazing human with a German Shepherd. Come on, let's dive in.
Yes.
Okay. So I want to know like how this all evolved, like how your passion turned into the stationery, that turned into the leather goods, that turned into etiquette. What was the evolution of that?
That was, okay. So 18 years of scattered ADD, things, trying to put this into a linear structure so that you can, follow along. I was a designer. I was an art director. That's the training. That's that was the degree out of college. And I was working actually up in New York, all the way up until, in about 2005, I was working kind of with my last few favorite photographers. I had gotten to a little point in my career where I thought, I want something different. I don't know exactly what I want, but I know the cool people who I need to ask all the questions of so that I can, figure out a little bit more. I knew who my potential mentors were going to be. So I was up here talking to a photographer who I considered one high up in that group. And he was friends with and worked with Martha Stewart, and was talking about her. He said, have you ever seen letterpress printing? And, those moments where someone uses a word and you just want to be cool enough to know what they're talking about, but you don't know.
Yeah. You're like,
it was one of those moments.
Yeah.
I was like, no, I've been having to be
Siri,
honest.
what is letterpress printing? Okay.
Exactly. Right. But in 2005. So no. So, so then he introduced me to this, and it was this beautiful, rich texture and this like pillowy cotton paper. And so as a designer, I could design something and have a plate made. And, I learned that art of letterpress printing, and then I gave it to printers. I Googled, I got on the internet and who prints letterpress. And what I realized really quickly was shipping paper. Like if I got the paper and shipped the paper somewhere, that cost as much as the printing did practically, right? Because paper is heavy. And so
Right.
you have to ship a lot more of it than comes back to you because there's waste. So then I found a local printer and figured out that just because they use the word letterpress doesn't mean they have the quality or knew the artisanal aspect that was sort of evolving in the art world. So long story short, my husband at the time, his family had a printing company that was around in its 5th generation. So, it was from the 1800s. They had these old proofing presses that weren't being used. They were sitting in the back of a warehouse in storage. It's a very, very small conservative town of 300 people. And when we asked his uncle if we could tinker around, or I, through my husband at the time, asked the uncle, can we tinker around on those presses? Because I thought, let me get in there. And I've got a little bit of an engineering brain. So I thought, I can do this. We can make this. Yeah, exactly. Make this beautiful paper. And the answer was no. Women collate paper, and you work on these, safe machines over here, and the men do the letterpress work. And so I was like, took my seat and watched over the shoulders. And then when he left the room, of course, it was just me and my husband left. I was like, move, I'm getting in there.
Yeah,
I knew I could figure it out. So I would go back and forth as I got work and use their presses. And then it evolved into, hey, I'm getting more work. Can I borrow these? And to this day, I still have those 3 presses from that family in my workshop. And then of course we've bought more, and we engrave, and we do all kinds of specialty printing. And through that evolution, I noticed 2 things. One was the industry is so old and antiquated, and all the processes were too. So I developed some processes, and that's really where the success of the company, not to go too far into that, but that was really
fascinating.
Gave me the opportunities. Did you do? Well, for one thing, those proofing presses and a lot of the specialty printing, there would be like one guy in a big shop that had all gone digital and all gone to like, high volume, high output, sort of like magazines or textbooks or postcards or mailers or whatever. And it was all just digitally printed, just, the color stuff that we see all the time, your magazines and whatnot.
Right.
And so the little corner where they did a little bit of dye stamping or did a little bit of edge painting or did that was dying off, and those artisans were kind of dying off because it was like each shop had their own version or one aspect of the special stuff, because it wasn't profitable enough for them to invest in that and grow that part. So what I said is, you know what, I'm tired as an artist of sending this paper over to Chicago for this process and to New York for that process and to California. Like, let's get all these artisans under one roof and cross-train them, because they don't have the same skill set, but they have the same mentality and the same talents.
Oh my gosh, amazing.
So that's what we did, is we were the first ones to bring all the specialty printing in one place and say, we're not just going to specialize in one thing. If it's got a plate and it needs an artisan to do it, we're going to do it under this roof. And it changed the dynamic a little bit, because we were able to be faster and more efficient and all kinds of things. So as that grew, I started getting more and more work, and that kind of work is expensive, right? I just talked about a plate that has to get in there. You can go to the website, the people, if you've never seen this before, you look at the prices and go, whoa, they think they're special, or, that kind of reaction. But it's a very costly artisanal craftsman, very specialized process to get the result that we get. It's why it doesn't look like anything else that you can find just, off the street. So because of that, people would come in and they would expect, well, you've got this high quality and you've got this beautiful design and you've got this really expensive product. So you have to tell me what the messaging is. How am I supposed to word my wedding invitation? What am I supposed to have on my stationery? What am I supposed, and all of a sudden I had this realization of, oh, they expect me to be the expert. I thought I was the printer and the designer, but it makes total sense.
No.
I mean, when I worked in an advertising department, there was a copywriter, there was a designer, there was, all these people. And so now in a small little company where I can't afford that, I had to become the copywriter and I had to become the etiquette expert. So I made sure I got trained in all those things. And I have a stack of etiquette books that's probably as tall as I am.
That's amazing.
And just made sure I knew my stuff, because that became part of what made the Bell and Vito product special. If you're going to be the best of the best, you have not only the best paper and materials, not only the best printing, and not only the best service, but the best messaging. Otherwise, I'm not giving you the full best of everything.
I love, this is so old school. First of all, I just love it. I mean, maybe it's not, but it feels like it to me. And also, I just keep imagining Lady Whistledown. Did you ever watch Bridgerton?
Yes, of course.
Right? Yes. Lady Whistledown, like with her little, like going out there, like to the printer. And so I've just got like such fun vibes. But it reminds me of when I got married the second time. It was 2014 was my wedding. And my husband and I had this small wedding in France where his family lived. And it was really important to us to like actually do an invitation and not do, whatever. And I remember sitting with the invitation person, the stationery person, and being like, what's the what is the right way to, how do you say, like, what do you say? Right.
And why would you know that? I have
no idea.
Yeah, exactly. And most people don't. Like, we're not taught, I mean, as you know from what you do, we're not taught basic behaviors, much less etiquette. And the thing is, people go, there's this misperception. Well, etiquette is stuffy and we don't worry about etiquette because, we're casual, we're cool. And that's missing the boat. You do worry about etiquette. You have your own etiquette. You have protocols in the subculture of your house. And when someone doesn't follow them, it's weird. And your friends know what they are. And the people that are strangers to you don't. And that is a form of etiquette. So when we're talking about etiquette, we're talking about things that are tried and true. These things work. There's a reason that we communicate in such a way, because it can't be, or typically isn't, or is most often, not misconstrued or misunderstood or taken the wrong way, because these things work.
I love it. Okay, let's talk about some basics.
Okay.
And I know we could talk about dating, and also I'd love to talk about any other area that you feel like people are asking you about. I mean, I know you've got a podcast, you've got like a lot of people asking you, because I think what you said is so important that people are like, oh, that doesn't matter now. But I mean, I have 3 daughters in their mid-20s. Like, I want them to know what's appropriate. I still feel like it's important. So
it is.
So what are some basic do's and don'ts that people are asking you all the time, and you're sharing the most ideal way? I
think, start with what you start with is emotional intelligence. And we all speak a little bit of that vocabulary now, right? Excuse me. We all have the basics that we know either inherently or because you were, brought up, but we've learned to say please and say thank you. That's the manners aspect of it. But really what's behind that is you're trying to, like, what's the why? Why do I need to say please and thank you? You're showing that you're being considerate. You're showing that you're being respectful. You're showing that you are being gracious and accepting someone's gift. It doesn't matter if you like it or not. You're being grateful. You're thankful that they took the time. So I think starting with, I'm getting a lot of why on any topic, whether it's social media or with social media, dating etiquette, or, if we're talking about table manners. And I think it's important. I love the why, because the why is why it was rejected for a long time, because it felt like it was stuffy and it felt like it was unnecessary for most of our lives, because we don't live formally at least 97% of the time. And then that 3% where if you are fortunate enough to be able to throw a formal party and you want everything to look, all of a sudden, this happens all the time in my clients in my world. And each one of them kind of get embarrassed or feel like they should know something. And I'm going, don't come in front of me and feel like you have to know something that you literally use like so in such a small part of your life. That's what I'm here for. I'm here to tell you, and I'm here to make you look good. That's my job. So
I love it. It's
yeah. So get in front of somebody and ask the questions.
Yeah. So it's just making me, so I can you tell I watch a lot of reality and probably like guilty pleasure television, but I watched Below Deck. Okay. Do you ever see that
yes.
show?
Yes, I have.
Okay.
I love it.
They're very, like, they are really trying to do things in a formal way. And there was this episode this season, and there was a knife. And this woman who I think was super rude and thought she knew about etiquette went and was speaking to the staff, and she was like, "This is a bread knife. Like, why are you giving me this knife?" And it was a fish knife. And the stewardess was like, told her. She was like, a fish knife has this because it's getting in here, and a bread knife is rounded. And my husband and I were like, we knew the difference. I don't know how who taught me that, but there's difference. So, and my kids, and they're trying to like, what's the right way to set the table? Is there still a right? I mean, this is so basic, but is there still like a right way to set the table for like casual and then formal with the glass over here? And how does that work?
Well, everything goes in the same spot. You're going to have more utensils if you have more courses, and that tends to be more formal. And then, the napkin always goes on the left, but people love to get creative and put the napkin in the center. But then, so there's some little variations when you get a designer involved, because that's what they do. They always just create variations, right? But within the bounds of the educated, of the knowledge of, of what is correct. And what I like to say is, what I really love is when I see designers break the rules who know the rules in the first place. And what's really tragic, and this, this happens a lot, is whether it's style or doing, a wedding invitation, wording something that you put time and effort into, and then you can just tell that things were missed or things were overlooked. They weren't decided against, they were just overlooked. And when you know something, when you have the education, you know what you know. You can't unknow it. So that's why that's the thing that I love about etiquette, is you don't know what you don't know until you let yourself or force yourself to learn it. And it's worth it, because how many times, to your point, do you go into a situation and feel so empowered when you actually are like, I was right. I knew that. I don't know how I knew it. But I mean, how good did that feel? Your face lit up when you talked about it, right?
I was like, I know what a fish, I don't know. I still am not good at that was another thing. I was in a situation where they served fish with the bones in it. And I was literally like, wah, wah. No one taught me how to do this, like gracefully, right? And it was sort of like a formal situation. I knew the knife, but I don't know how to use it. Okay, so napkin goes on the left. Here's another question I have for you. So I told you my in-laws are European.
Yes.
They call the napkin the serviette. They don't even use a napkin. And so I'm like, napkin, get the napkin, put it in your lap. So if you're on a date, if you're in a nice place, if you're setting your table, you're having your guy, you want to make a nice dinner, or you're on a date and you're having someone over, what are the rules about the napkin these days?
In your lap with the fold, you fold it in half in your lap, and the fold's towards you, that opens away from you, if you want to get really technical. But if you put your napkin in your lap, I consider it a win, because some people don't even know to do that.
You do that right away?
Right away. And I'm such a nerd about it now. You'll see me with like a tiny little paper napkin in my lap, when I'm having a hot dog. It, like, once you kind of get in the habit, you just do it. But it's, put the napkin in your lap. If something drops, even a football stadium, I mean, I'm all for being casual as many places as you can, but it's just a good idea, and it's a good habit to get into.
Okay. Love it. Let's talk about this question I get asked all the time in the dating realm. And I'm dying to know what you think. Do you offer to pay if you actually don't intend to pay? Because I've had clients who are like, I offered to pay, and can you believe it? He said, okay, or yeah, sure, let's split it. I'm like, well, why did you offer? Were you just like trying to trap him in like an etiquette example? How does that work?
Well, how it works from the etiquette default position is the person who invites pays. So
that's what I thought.
If you're getting together and you kind of, but then how many times is it that formal? I think that's where the gray area comes in, right?
Yeah.
How many times is it, a conversation of like, let's just get together, and we're not even sure who totally invited. Like maybe that's a whole nother conversation. But if there's a clear who invited, that is a clear who pays.
I love it. Okay, here's another. This is so fun. This is like bingo. Here's another question. Couples who go out. So my husband and I don't drink. So when we go out with people that we don't know that well, like it's a first couple date, right? Or early on, there's this conversation that happens about like, do we ask to split the check at the beginning because we don't drink? And like, there are people who have like multiple bottles of wine or cocktails and, you know, it becomes awkward, right? And I'm always like people are nice, just let it unfold. Most people are like, oh my God, we'll do the tip. You didn't. So is there is that a thing? Is there etiquette around that?
There is. What I would tell you is, because some experts will tell you split the check, but to your point, when it's so lopsided that it's not fair, it's not the etiquette to split the check. The split the check is when you don't want to haggle over a few dollars here and a few dollars there. That doesn't make sense. And when you're doing this often, right? Like these are people you might do it again, and sometimes only more on their end, right? But and I'm curious what you think about it too. What I would tell people is have that conversation up front. Just say, we're gonna go ahead and do two separate checks if you don't mind, because if you're comfortable saying that, because that's just how we usually do it. So you guys, enjoy, and then we don't have to have the waiter split everything later. I'm an upfront person. I would rather break the ice up front than make it awkward at the end. But I don't know that there is a wrong answer to your point about letting it play out, as long as you're concise on either end, and as long as it's not confusing and it's easy.
Yeah, I agree with you. My concern about bringing it up at the beginning is, and again, this could be my story, but it's like I feel awkward about it because you're basically saying like, I don't drink. And for people that don't know us well, some people are like, oh God, okay. Like feel bad that they are.
Like, then can I? Yeah.
We literally don't give a shit, like at all. Yeah. Like have as many cocktails as you want. That's not, And so I'm just sort of always like, like at the end, like it'll work out. Now I could be wrong, but typically people are like aware. They're not P.S. They're not so hammered that they don't know. Right. But I will tell you, and that's why I asked the question, there's been some situations with a larger group, for example, when you go out, right? And I remember one incident, and it was like a Mexican restaurant, maybe. My husband and were there, and there was like a bunch of people, and they were just ordering tons of like pitchers of sangria or whatever it was. And my husband and I were like, oh God, like we didn't say it up front. Now it's going to be awkward. We're going to have to say it. So maybe it's like, if it's a bigger group, say it up front. Like, what do you want to do with the check? But if it's another couple, there's a little more. I don't know. What do you think, Heather?
I'm going to offer one other solution in that particular scenario. And I'm going to say, especially because the other thing that I think I heard from you a little bit, there was an implication in there that you don't want to be a buzzkill, right? Like,
right.
So,
literally a literal buzzkill.
Yeah, literally. Right. So in that situation, I might go up to the waiter and just say, hey, the two of us are on a separate check.
Love that.
And don't even, like, the group doesn't even need to know. It's not that you're keeping it a secret. If someone said, hey, what's going on? Or you guys didn't drink. Oh, no, we already took care of us. You guys split it however you want.
Oh my God, that's a great idea.
The goal is to keep it easy, right?
Yes, because you're
not there for the splitting of the check. You're there for the camaraderie. You're there for the fun.
I freaking love it. Okay. My other question for you is, when you think, I know that there's like basics, right? Like, as we said, don't get hammered, be on time. Do you think there is any etiquette around, or is there any etiquette around when you are on a date around matching someone? Because I think alcohol is like a thing that comes up, right? Like, and then I'm going to ask you about, is it bad to order like a steak? If you get asked out on a date, are you supposed to order like a salad? You know what I mean? Like, is there etiquette around like dollar value? So tell me that. What's the etiquette around drinking Do you follow the person's lead who invited? What do we do? And also ordering in dollars.
I would say unequivocally do what you are comfortable with keeping in mind, don't overdo it. I would never say match someone, because people's body chemistry is different. How much your liver is used to is different. I'm a lightweight. I cannot match, and I will pace if they order another one, then I'll do like a sparkling water, and then maybe I'll do another one after that. But I think you've got to know yourself, and you've got to stay true to yourself. There's no matching what somebody else is doing.
I love that. And then, is it not appropriate to order like what you want when you go out on a date if someone invites you? Do you go for the appetizer?
That is such a hard question. I like this question. It's such a hard question because as a woman, we get asked by the waitstaff first, right?
Yeah.
So it's not like you can look and see what somebody else is doing. Typically, if you're talking about a man and a woman, guys or, two girls or two guys might have a little bit easier because you could go, well, what are you getting? You go first or something. But usually if it's, a straight couple, then I get put in that position often and I'm going, oh, I kind of want it. So I'll ask what they're having and I won't go too far outside of what they're going to do. Mm-hmm. Just out of respect. Now, if I'm paying, I'm going to get exactly, whatever I want. And I don't think, I think the flip side of that too is you don't have to eat like a bird. You don't have to order the cheapest thing on the menu. But I do think that there is some consideration that goes into your ordering process. Whereas if you were splitting the bill or if you were paying yourself, that's entirely a different scenario.
Do you want to hear a really funny dating etiquette story?
Yes.
I have two. One is I was recently at my high school reunion, 40 years. And my one friend, I'm going to tell on him, Greg, he's a good looking, great guy, kind of dates women, sometimes a little younger. And he doesn't want to put his readers on.
Oh, how funny. I've heard this before. Keep going. I want to hear how he handles it.
So what he does is he says, you pick me out, you pick a nice protein. And so they order for him and he says, you just pick something. I trust you. Pick me out a nice protein. Now, my other friend, this was a conversation of single men in their late 50s. The other guy was like, oh, well, what I do is I just say, you pick something out and we can split it. And I was like, no. That just says I'm a cheap ass all over the place. It does. So don't talk about splitting on a date. So what do you think about, is there etiquette way with your readers, or what do you do when it's really dark in a restaurant? My kids are like, put on that flashlight, and I swear to God, I'm going to run.
I know. I mean, every once in a while I will, grab the candle and tilt it and going, it's so dark in here. There you can ask. I mean, I think, figuring out how to read it, I'm trying to think of, I'm like going through the restaurants in my head and I'm like, well, in this kind of restaurant, I would just, flat out probably whip the flashlight out. In that type of restaurant, I wouldn't do that, but I might ask the waiter. I might go, I can't make this out. What is this one? What is this one? I mean,
I love that.
But I think, that is kind of tricky. Okay. Going back to your friend, Greg. Hello, Greg.
Yes. Hi, Greg.
Hi, Greg. I think that is so funny because I have heard girls comment on that and they sit there and like, oh, he didn't they know what's going on and they just play along. And so I just want to be like, Greg, careful with that trick. The younger ones might not have realized it yet, but there's a consortium of women who know your game. We're onto your game.
Oh my God. Well, that turned into a whole thing. I was like, well, and then anyway, it was funny because I was like, well, what else are you having to hide?
Oh my gosh, that's hilarious.
That's another episode.
I bet.
So, okay, let's also talk about this. I want to talk about invitations to family gatherings when you are dating someone seriously, but not in not engaged, not married. Because I see a lot of couples who've been dating 3 or 4 years, maybe they're not living together, maybe a little bit older, whatever it is. And they're like, do I invite my partner to, my sister's graduation? Or is my partner obligated to come to this? Or if I invite them for Passover, do they have to invite me to their second night of is there etiquette for like this inviting when you're in this sort of like in between space?
The etiquette's going to be clarity, right? Like that's where it's going to be. It's going to be respectful of that couple's established how they're presenting themselves. If they're presenting themselves as a couple to the world for the most part, not for the most part, but the reason I'm saying for the most part is because my conservative mother would not necessarily consider, a couple if they weren't married or, engaged or something like that. But we're all living in a time and a generation where if they're living together, or maybe they're not living together, but they've been together and they go to everything together and they are known as each other's plus one and they are in a committed relationship. If you are able financially to accommodate this additional guest, then yes, that person should be invited. But if the couple's unclear, and I've been in these relationships before where it's, or are we calling them situationships? I don't know.
Right.
Then
right.
That person, no, there's no obligation to invite that person. If the couple's not clear, then you don't have to invite them.
Okay. Now here's another one. If the couple is clear, does the person, do you have to check in? Like, is it okay if so-and-so and so-and-so come to this thing?
Who's checking with who?
So I'm just thinking of some examples where, I'll just use a real life example. So I have a client whose adult daughter was going to host a family gathering, and wanted to bring her partner. They've been together, but also like it was her party, right? And so is the etiquette to say like, hey, oh my God, thanks for inviting me over for this, for Thanksgiving, whatever. I just want to make sure it's okay with so-and-so comes, or is it okay if so-and-so brings their daughter, or right?
Right.
Like, is it etiquette to like, or is it like, no, we're a couple, we're a family. Like, of course they're going to come. Me and Jeff and his daughter, Naomi, will be there. We're so great. We're so grateful that you invited us.
Where the etiquette starts to fall apart is with that host. Were they clear? We'll see you and your family there. We'll see all of you there.
Love that.
Because if you're wording it, and this is, where I come in on the paper, if you're wording it on paper, I have clear cut rules for you. We can absolutely tell who's invited and who's not. If you were invited through a conversation or through a text, if you're invited, then especially if it was through a conversation and we all just talked about getting together, if it was that casual, then I'm not going to tell you not to call and clarify, because if it wasn't clear on the front end, you really do need to call and clarify. Do it as early as possible. Don't do it like as you guys are pulling out of the driveway on your way. Oh, I should have asked. Now we've got a car full. I hope it's okay.
Right.
Like, do it at the onset of the whatever is happening. But if this was a text that was sent out, then the onus really does start with the hostess. He needs to be clear about who is being invited. And if they were clear and you feel like someone was left out, really the etiquette there is that the someone left out they were left out.
Oh,
they were not.
Burn. Okay. I love that. Okay. Let's talk about on paper stuff.
Okay.
So we have a lot of people who are listening who may be in a second marriage or engagement or whatever it is. Do you put how do you do name? Like, is there, like a naming thing, like both names? Like even with my husband and I, we have separate last names. Yeah. So is there etiquette around names? Like, has that changed? Okay. Tell me about how does that work?
There is. There's a whole thing. So depends on if it's formal or casual, right? Or formal, informal, casual. So if you were let's just start with formal. We'll start at the top.
Yeah.
If you're going to do this formally, and your indication on whether it's formal or not, aside from, or in addition to, I guess, the time of day that it is. Like your time of day kind of starts everything. We've become a culture where we don't even know most of this stuff. So obviously you're going to see everything. But when we're talking about from etiquette, if it's later in the evening, it tends to be formal. If you say, if whoever's inviting is a parent, let's say, or like an aunt and uncle or somebody, if Mr. and Mrs. So-and-so are requesting the honor of your presence, or however you want to word that phrase. But if Mr. and Mrs., you're in formal land because you just use titles. If Susan and Joe Smith are inviting people, then you're informal because we just used first and last names. So we start there.
Okay.
So in the scenario where, and maybe it's a second marriage, maybe it's first marriage, if the parents are still inviting or somebody else besides the bride and groom are still inviting, then you're going to follow that protocol. If they use their first names, then they're inviting let's say it was your parents and they were inviting a bunch of people, whether it was your wedding or a reception or whatever, they were inviting. So they are inviting your full name with your last name. Or if they refer to you as their daughter and you have their last name, then you can drop it off. But if you say had kids and you kept your first married name, and it's different from your parents' name, then you would state your full name with the same last name as your children. You would state your first, middle, and last name, or first and last name, depending on how formal you wanted to be with that. And then his first, last name. You would follow it. So if you used a middle name, he would use a middle name. So everybody follows suit from the host all the way through the groom's name or the groom's parents' name, depending on how many people are throwing this invitation or this party. So,
girl, when my kids get married, I'm calling you because there are so many parentals.
there are so many unique situations. But what it is, so this is where I love this question. I'm gonna throw something out there that I get all the time that is so misunderstood. When you use Mr. and Mrs., a lot of these first weddings, Mr. and Mrs. So-and-so request the pleasure of your company at the marriage of their daughter, Annie Kate. And it's just her first and middle name. She's not a miss. She doesn't get a title. And it's not because she's a girl and it's not because we like boys better. It's because it's their daughter. And in formal etiquette, it would be considered ostentatious for a parent to use a title to introduce their own child. And so what an invitation is doing is you're introducing the groom. You're saying, come see who my daughter picked to get married to. And I'm going to treat him as an equal with a title. So come see my daughter marry Mr. So-and-so, so-and-so.
So it'd be my daughter, Annie Kate, to Mr. Blah, blah, blah.
If you use Mr. for you, you should use Mr. Mr. and Mrs. for you, you should use Mr. for him out of respect for him.
Oh my God. Okay, so I'm just going to ask you now. So, so currently, I don't think my ex-husband would ever get married again for a third time. So it would be like him, me, and then my husband, who's been with my kids since they were little. Okay. So there's 3 parentals.
Yes.
I have the same name. This is like a math problem. I have the same name as my ex-husband. My kids have the same name as me and my ex-husband.
Okay.
And my husband's got his own last name, but we would all be inviting. What would we do, Heather?
So you're all hosting. We're all
hosting.
Equally hosting. Whew, you're gonna have to get the big card.
I know, that's what I'm saying. I'm like, wait, what is this? What does that mean?
You, there's a right way to list all of that out, and then it's if it's your and his, because a lot of times when there's a remarried parent or 2 remarried parents, their children or his daughter or her, you got to get all the pronouns right. And then, but yes, I mean, this is the work that we do. This is why you go to a stationer and you have them help you with all of this stuff, because it is complicated. Our family situations are all
complicated and embedded in all of that, right? Is like nobody wanting to be left out. Everybody wanting to like be involved in the invitation. And also for those of you who are listening who are planning your kids' weddings, right? Like so that your kids don't feel awkward or embarrassed and honor all the people who love love them.
Right. And it is to your point. I love what you're saying. it's worth doing the little bit of research, the little bit of work, finding the expert, paying a little bit more if that's what's required, because this is a milestone. People remember these decisions, whether you like it or not, their whole lives. We're still talking about our first weddings and things that happened and they make a difference to people. That little title, that inclusion, that something on that invitation says a lot about consideration and respect. And that's why it's worth getting it right.
Joe Farragher did not wear a tuxedo to my first wedding. It was black tie. And forevermore, I will always remember that Joe Farragher did not wear a tuxedo to my first wedding.
I love it. See what you remember. This is amazing.
It was my ex-husband's boss. It was so weird. Right?
You're
and
like,
so after, you're like, oh, it was amazing. And then you're like, can you believe Joe Farragher didn't? Do you know what I mean? It was like so silly, but like it just was odd. It was just stood out. So it does matter.
It does matter. Little
matters
things
to you.
And you don't know what matters to people. So just again, when you're going to a wedding, we're not talking about an office cocktail party.
Right.
Do what matters to the couple. You're showing up for someone to support them. Follow suit.
Okay. Last thing. I mean, I could talk to you for like 10 hours. Okay. So last thing, I know
fun.
one of the things you're great at is like, what is the etiquette around boundaries and things? And I'm just curious at this point, because I was talking to a colleague, because teaser, we're going to bring back on Life Check Yourself a dating specific episode.
So nice.
People are excited.
I'm going to be back on that one. Yes.
Yeah. Right. So, but is it weird to offer to pick up a woman at her house, right? What is etiquette around like being picked up and being dropped off, or does it none of that matter anymore because everyone's afraid everyone's a stalker? I'm so confused.
I'm going to stop short of saying, well, this is the protocol, because to your point, like the world is not that it was always, it's just, it doesn't feel like a safe place, and you need to make sure that you're safe. If I just met somebody, I'm going to meet them at the restaurant. I don't want them coming to my house. I don't need them knowing where I live yet. I don't think it's definitely not, I don't think that's a requirement at all. I think if any etiquette expert said it was, I would challenge them on that, because, safety first, regardless of anything. And if you get to a place where you are being picked up by somebody, I get this question a lot. What's the protocol? Get out of the car and go to the door. No honking, no texting. I have what we call it, my husband, my gay husband that I eat, out to dinner with like twice a week, whatever. He can text me from the car. That's fine. Right. But, if I'm going out on a date, or if I'm being picked up, and a lot of people that are, good friends, they still will get out and come. It is the proper nice thing to do, to get out and come to the door.
So notice that. People, teach your sons. Teach your sons. When I went to my high school reunion, these, I'm calling them boys, but now they're grown ass men. They were like opening the door for me and shit. And I was like, damn.
Good.
I know. My husband doesn't do that and does not do that. I was like, wow. And my one friend is like, I was just raised by that dad.
Oh, I love that. That's awesome.
Like, yeah.
Yeah.
I know you're single. Maybe
I'll tell you the other thing.
Yeah.
If we want to leave somebody with, leave a gentleman with a little tidbit that is impressive, the door, the car door. But when a woman gets up and down from the table, when I'm with a group of men who, you don't have to full on stand up, that's obnoxious. But, when they rise up, or they make sure that she's okay, and they just kind of do the like partial raise or something. Anytime a woman, especially at a nicer restaurant, gets up or comes, sits back down at the table, gets up, pulls her chair out, or if he's not in a situation where he can do that and the waiter's going to do it, he at least kind of rises up a little bit. Those are winners.
I love that. So when my dad was dating my stepmom, my dad was married for like 43 years. My mom passed away and he started dating, and he hadn't dated since like 1963 or whatever. So all he knew was like how you dated in 1963. And my stepmom called it the year of the woo, because he was like wooing her. Yes. Right. But he did all those things. He stood up. He like had an extra handkerchief, all those sorts of things. Right. Yes. And so I think that if any guy knows how to woo in a formal sort of way, that today any woman would appreciate it.
Absolutely.
It's just so like special at this point.
And it does speak volumes about your ability to just have a little self-awareness, train yourself to be a step above. I mean, just those acts, whether you get them, I mean, that act in and of itself of bettering yourself and bringing that to the table is huge.
I love it. I have loved this conversation so much.
Oh, me too. This is great.
So
Thank
fun.
you so much.
Of course. So ladies, so can people, I'm going to just do a commercial for you because I think you're so cool. Can you order all of this stuff online, or is this stuff that's done? How does one find an actual real stationery? How do you call it?
Stationer.
Okay.
Yes, you can. We have basics that you can order online. If you like what you see and you just want to plug and play with your name, and some people want that few number of decisions, then that's there online. We also have an appointment panel, and that's what most people do because what we're known for is very custom work. So if you want something that is just you from top to bottom and you don't see exactly what you want, but you see the quality, obviously, that, we do, then you make an appointment and we go from there.
I love it. Well, y'all need to just go in the show notes to Heather's link, bellandvito.com, because first of all, they have other cool stuff like calendar things, desk calendars, also really cute little cocktail napkins, all things I love.
Sassy little things. I love them. Thank you.
I mean, I want to play. Here's the last story I will tell you all. When my kids were little, I lived across the street from my friend Lita Lee from Texas. I grew up in Iowa. And she knew how to throw like a formal thing, right? And so we always printed out like these menu cards, right? And she taught me about the little things you put on the stem of your glass so you know it's yours, and the little things you could put like a name card in. And I have all of that stuff in storage. I did not get rid of any of it because it's so fun. And you have all of these sort of fun little things on your website that you can do to like gussy up your event and have more fun and be a hostie with the mostie.
Yeah, let's do it. I love it. Thank you so much. Come do it. Let's talk about it. I always like to see the pictures after. Tell me how your party went.
I know. It's so good. Parties need to make a comeback. Ladies, so much to review in this episode when you, in fact, are life checking yourself. By the way, if you have a friend who's like, I don't know to invite, what should I do? Send him this episode. I mean, who knows this shit in your life? Nobody but Heather. So forward, share with your friends. Heather, thank you so much for being here. Definitely check out all of Heather's info in the show notes. You can find me at Marni Battista _. You can also find me at marnibattista.com. But whatever you do, always and forevermore, life check yourself. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye for now. Thanks for tuning into today's show. Do you ever wake up feeling like you've already run a marathon before the day even begins? Does your coffee need a coffee just to get through the morning? Well, I feel you, and I've been there. Burnout isn't just a buzzword. It's a reality for far too many of us, especially as we navigate life over 40. But here's the good news. You don't have to accept feeling perpetually drained as your new normal. I'm excited to introduce my new flagship, Live Life on Your Terms program. This isn't just another Band-Aid fix or a fluffy self-care promise. This is about real transformation. We're diving deep to tackle the root cause of your burnout, regulate your nervous system, lower your cortisol and adrenaline, and rewire your neural pathways to transform how you feel in your life from the inside out. Imagine this, waking up energized, not by caffeine, but by excitement and passion for the day ahead. Picture yourself managing stress with grace and finding joy in moments big and small. That's not just a dream or a someday. It's within your reach now. So, if you like what you've heard and you're interested in seeing if you're a fit for working together, here's what I want you to do next. Email me at vip@datingwithdignity.com. Don't wait for one day. Make today your day one so we can create your next chapter. I'm Marni, and I'll talk to you soon.